Waitress finds her mother's photo in a billionaire's wallet. Discover the heart-wrenching truth that follows. In today's video, we dive into a heartwarming and emotional family reunion that uncovers long-hidden secrets. Watch as a daughter searches for answers, only to discover a shocking twist that will change everything. This family reunion is filled with emotion, and you won't want to miss how it unfolds. If you love stories about family bonds and the power of reconnection, make sure to like and subscribe to the Stories TA channel for more incredible content. Zoe Carter was working a quiet, late-night shift at the diner, wiping down counters and waiting for the long night to finally end. She barely looked up when the door jingled, signaling the entrance of yet another customer. However, this wasn't an ordinary late-night visitor. It was a man whose presence alone commanded attention. Wearing a suit more expensive than her entire year's rent, he exuded wealth, confidence, and power. Zoe walked over to serve him coffee, noting his polite but dismissive manner, typical of people who rarely notice those who serve them. But everything changed dramatically when the man reached for his wallet. A photograph fell onto the floor, face up, and Zoe felt a chill sweep through her body. It was a picture she recognized immediately. The familiar, gentle face of her mother, Evelyn Carter, who had passed away, leaving Zoe to navigate adulthood alone. Shocked, Zoe questioned him immediately, desperate to understand how this wealthy, influential stranger could be carrying a photo of her mother, a simple woman who had spent her life working hard and raising Zoe alone, without any known connections to privilege or power. The man quickly brushed off her questions, insisting she was mistaken, but Zoe knew the truth. She would recognize her mother's face anywhere. Later, consumed by curiosity, she spent the entire night researching online, eventually discovering his identity. Richard Lawson, a billionaire and real estate tycoon. Determined for answers, she confronted him at his corporate office, demanding to know why he had the photo. There, after tense hesitation, Richard revealed an astonishing truth. Evelyn had once been the love of his life. However, under pressure from his wealthy family who disapproved of Evelyn's modest background, he had made the devastating choice to leave her behind. Zoe was shattered by the revelation, heartbroken that her mother had endured hardship alone while Richard went on to live a life of privilege and luxury. Yet her heartbreak turned into a deeper shock when she discovered among her mother's belongings a small pendant engraved with the words "Forgive, Love, Begin," and realized the photograph inside was none other than Richard. This confirmed her suspicions. Richard Lawson was not merely her mother's long-lost love. He was Zoe's father. Struggling with conflicting emotions, Zoe faced Richard once more, sharing the painful truth with him. He expressed sincere regret, explaining he had tried unsuccessfully to find Evelyn, unaware she had carried and raised their child alone. While Zoe was not yet ready to forgive or embrace him fully, she understood this meeting was about healing and coming to terms with her past. The pendant her mother left behind symbolized a path forward, giving Zoe the chance to rewrite her future. Although uncertain about their relationship's future, Zoe chose not to close the door entirely, acknowledging that some wounds take time to heal and reconciliation must happen gradually. Her story became a powerful reminder that although the past shapes who we are, it does not have to define our future. True healing begins with confronting difficult truths and having the courage to choose our own path. 2. Zoe Carter's life changed forever one late evening at the quiet diner where she worked, when a wealthy stranger named Richard Lawson entered and unintentionally revealed a shocking connection to her past. Zoe, accustomed to serving anonymous customers, was startled when Richard's wallet fell open and revealed a photograph of her mother, Evelyn Carter, a humble woman who had raised Zoe on her own without any connections to wealth or privilege. Immediately unsettled, Zoe demanded answers, but Richard coldly brushed her off, claiming she was mistaken. Unable to let this mystery go, Zoe spent the night researching and discovered Richard was a billionaire real estate mogul and CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe confronted him at his luxurious office tower. After an intense encounter, Richard finally revealed a deeply buried truth. Evelyn was the great love of his life, but he had abandoned her years ago due to family pressure, choosing his inheritance and social status over their relationship. By the time he realized his mistake and returned, Evelyn had vanished, intentionally leaving no trace. Zoe, filled with resentment and pain for her mother's years of struggle, left Richard's office angry and confused. That night, however, she found a silver pendant among her late mother's cherished belongings inscribed with the words "Forgive, Love, Begin," and a small photograph of Richard. Zoe was stunned to realize that Richard Lawson was, in fact, her father, a man she had never known existed. With this revelation, Zoe returned to confront Richard, revealing the pendant as evidence. Overwhelmed with regret, Richard explained he had spent years searching for Evelyn, never knowing she had kept their child a secret. Zoe now understood her mother's silence had been a deliberate act of protection, meant to shield Zoe from a father who had chosen wealth and power over love. Though Richard sincerely expressed his wish to make amends and be a part of Zoe's life, she remained cautious and unsure whether she could forgive him. Yet, Zoe realized the pendant represented her mother's final message, granting Zoe the freedom to choose her own path. Although reconciliation would not happen overnight, she decided not to close the door entirely, leaving open the possibility that they might find a way forward together. Zoe's story exemplifies the complexity of family bonds and the possibility for healing even after profound betrayal. It underscores how confronting painful truths can empower individuals to reshape their futures, highlighting that the past does not have to determine one's destiny. Through courage, forgiveness, and love, new beginnings remain within reach, even when they seem impossible. 3. Zoe Carter's encounter with billionaire Richard Lawson sparked a deeply emotional journey that reshaped her understanding of family, love, and forgiveness. Their first meeting was entirely accidental, occurring late one night at the quiet diner where Zoe worked. When Richard's wallet slipped open, Zoe caught a glimpse of a photograph inside her mother, Evelyn Carter, a humble African-American woman who had raised Zoe alone with quiet strength. Evelyn had never revealed any connection to wealth or privilege, so Zoe was stunned and confused to see her mother's image in the wallet of a wealthy, influential white businessman. Initially, Richard refused to explain, dismissing Zoe and leaving her desperate for answers. Determined, Zoe managed to track Richard down and confront him directly at his corporate headquarters. With a painful truth emerged. Richard had once deeply loved Evelyn, but had abandoned her because his family pressured him into choosing wealth and inheritance over their relationship. Zoe discovered further heartbreak when she learned that Richard had intended to return for Evelyn once he secured his future, only to find her already gone, leaving no way to reconnect. Evelyn, in her quiet dignity, had deliberately hidden herself and her daughter from Richard, believing she was protecting Zoe from the disappointment of a father who had turned his back on love. This revelation filled Zoe with a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion, prompting her to dig deeper into her mother's personal belongings for answers. She found a delicate silver pendant engraved with 3 powerful words, "Forgive, Love, Begin," and realized Evelyn had left this as a subtle message for Zoe, along with a photo confirming that Richard Lawson was indeed Zoe's father. Empowered by this discovery, Zoe once more confronted Richard, who expressed deep regret, sorrowfully admitting that abandoning Evelyn had been his greatest mistake and acknowledging the emotional damage his choices had caused. Zoe felt torn, struggling with the idea of forgiveness for the man who had caused her mother immense suffering, yet also sensing her mother's wisdom in leaving the choice to forgive and reconnect entirely up to her. Ultimately, Zoe chose neither to fully reject nor immediately embrace Richard, understanding that genuine healing takes time. She recognized the strength and courage required to face painful truths and move toward reconciliation. Zoe and Richard parted ways with cautious hope, acknowledging that although the past cannot be changed, the future remains theirs to shape, perhaps together. This poignant story speaks directly to the American experience, emphasizing powerful themes of forgiveness, reconciliation, and personal choice, reminding audiences that despite past wounds, families can rebuild trust and understanding. Zoe's journey inspires viewers, affirming that it is never too late to choose love and begin anew, even after years of hurt and loss. 4. Zoe Carter's life took an unexpected turn one late evening in a quiet diner when a mysterious billionaire entered, forever changing her understanding of family and identity. Exhausted from a long shift, Zoe barely registered the man's arrival until his wallet fell open, revealing a photo of her own mother, Evelyn, a humble African-American woman who had quietly raised Zoe alone, never once hinting at ties to wealth or influence. Struck with confusion and shock, Zoe confronted the man, Richard Lawson, a prominent white billionaire who initially brushed her off, offering no explanation and quickly leaving the diner. Unable to rest, Zoe spent hours tracking down Richard's identity, discovering he was the CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises, a powerful figure whose financial empire spanned cities and continents. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe boldly approached Richard at his corporate headquarters, demanding answers. There, behind closed doors, Richard finally confessed a secret that shook Zoe to her core. Evelyn wasn't just a past acquaintance, but the woman he had deeply loved and tragically abandoned. Richard revealed that his affluent family had given him an ultimatum, forcing him to choose between love and his inheritance. Afraid of losing his privileged status, Richard chose wealth, believing he could eventually reclaim Evelyn after securing his future. However, by the time Richard sought her out, Evelyn had disappeared without a trace, intentionally leaving no trail for him to follow. Zoe was devastated, realizing the pain her mother endured in silence and secrecy, always protecting Zoe from a truth she believed would cause greater heartbreak. Seeking further answers, Zoe later discovered a pendant among her mother's belongings inscribed with the powerful words, "Forgive, love, begin," along with a faded photo identifying Richard unmistakably as her father. Armed with newfound knowledge, Zoe returned to Richard, demanding an explanation for his absence and the deep emotional scars left behind. Richard expressed profound regret, admitting his mistakes with genuine remorse, yet acknowledging he couldn't rewrite history. For Zoe, forgiveness was a complex, overwhelming choice, one she wasn't prepared to make lightly. She understood her mother's wisdom in giving her the freedom to decide for herself whether reconciliation was possible or beneficial. Recognizing this, Zoe chose to neither immediately embrace nor permanently reject Richard, instead deciding to leave the door slightly open, giving both herself and Richard the chance to gradually rebuild trust and connection, step by cautious step. Zoe's emotional journey resonates deeply with American audiences, capturing universal themes of family dynamics, regret, reconciliation, and the power of individual choice. Her experience underscores the painful truth that wealth and privilege cannot replace love or mend broken relationships, yet also highlights the possibility of healing, redemption, and new beginnings. Ultimately, Zoe's courageous decision not to rush forgiveness, yet remain open to it, reflects the resilience, compassion, and strength inherent in navigating complicated family histories, reminding viewers that while we can't change the past, we can always choose how we move forward. 5. Zoe Carter's unexpected discovery of her mother's photograph in billionaire Richard Lawson's wallet led to a revelation that challenged everything she believed about her life. Initially stunned by the image of her mother, Evelyn, a humble African-American woman who raised Zoe alone without ever hinting at ties to immense wealth or influence, Zoe pursued the mysterious billionaire for answers. After confronting Richard, Zoe learned the painful truth. He wasn't merely a wealthy stranger, but her father, a man who had loved Evelyn deeply, but had chosen financial security and status over family, abandoning her when pressured by his affluent parents. Richard had left Evelyn with the intention of returning after securing his inheritance, but when he finally sought her out, Evelyn had disappeared completely, leaving no trace behind. Zoe grappled intensely with this newfound information, struggling to reconcile the father she never knew with the mother who had selflessly shielded her from this painful truth. Her emotions were a mixture of anger, betrayal, curiosity, and sadness as she considered how different her life might have been if Richard had chosen love over wealth. Exploring her mother's possessions, Zoe found a silver necklace engraved with 3 powerful words: forgive, love, begin, along with a faded photograph of Richard. This discovery forced Zoe to confront the reality that her mother had not hidden Richard out of resentment or malice, but rather out of love, seeking to protect Zoe from heartbreak. Determined to face her past and decide her own future, Zoe returned once more to Richard, not as an intruder or stranger, but openly as his daughter. Presenting him with the necklace, she saw genuine remorse and profound regret in his eyes. Richard confessed his lifelong anguish over losing Evelyn and admitted the irreparable mistake he had made by choosing wealth and status above true love and family. Though Zoe was moved by his sincerity, she was not immediately ready to forgive. Instead, she acknowledged the complexity of their shared past. Recognizing forgiveness could not be rushed or forced. She decided to leave the door to reconciliation cautiously open, allowing both herself and Richard the possibility to slowly build a relationship based on honesty, respect, and understanding. Zoe's experience deeply resonates with American audiences, exploring familiar themes of lost love, family secrets, racial divides, and the human capacity for redemption and forgiveness. It challenges the notion that financial prosperity guarantees happiness, emphasizing instead the enduring value of love, family bonds, and personal integrity. Ultimately, Zoe's journey offers an inspiring message, although one cannot erase past mistakes. Acknowledging them with honesty and humility can pave the way toward meaningful healing and reconciliation. Zoe's thoughtful decision to move forward without immediately granting forgiveness reflects strength and resilience, inviting viewers to consider how their own family's complex histories shape their present lives and future choices. 6. Zoe Carter's ordinary evening at the diner transformed into an unforgettable encounter when Richard Lawson, a billionaire real estate mogul, entered her quiet workplace, inadvertently revealing a photograph of her mother, Evelyn, in his wallet. Evelyn, a modest African-American woman who had quietly dedicated her life to raising Zoe alone, had never mentioned knowing anyone of wealth or prominence, making the discovery all the more startling. Driven by confusion and a desperate need for answers, Zoe confronted the enigmatic stranger, but he quickly dismissed her, leaving her with more questions than before. Unable to rest, Zoe turned to research, meticulously scouring online sources until she identified the mystery man as Richard Lawson, the influential CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe bravely ventured to Lawson's imposing office tower in downtown, navigating past security by boldly slipping through the employee entrance. She insisted on speaking to Richard directly, presenting her mother's name to gain his attention. When Richard finally agreed to meet her, Zoe demanded explanations for his possession of her mother's photograph. Richard, initially distant and reserved, slowly revealed the shocking truth. He had once deeply loved Evelyn, but ultimately abandoned her due to family pressures to maintain his wealthy status and inheritance. He confessed that, as a young man, he had prioritized financial security over love, planning to reunite with Evelyn after securing his fortune only to find she had vanished without a trace. Zoe felt deep anger toward Richard for his choice, knowing her mother had suffered through life without the support she deserved, all while he prospered in luxury and privilege. Richard's admission of guilt and regret over his actions further complicated Zoe's feelings, as it became clear that her mother's silence about Richard had been a deliberate attempt to protect her from similar heartbreak. That night, struggling to process these revelations, Zoe searched through her mother's personal belongings, eventually discovering a velvet pouch holding a delicate silver necklace engraved with 3 meaningful words: forgive, love, begin. Attached to the necklace was another photograph of Richard, along with a handwritten note from Evelyn explaining that one day Zoe would understand her choice. This emotional discovery revealed another truth. Zoe had never imagined Richard Lawson was not merely her mother's former lover, but her biological father. Armed with this newfound clarity, Zoe returned to Lawson's office once more, boldly identifying herself as Richard's daughter. Presenting the pendant as proof, Zoe witnessed a rare moment of vulnerability from Richard, who painfully admitted he had no knowledge of Zoe's existence. He confessed he had desperately searched for Evelyn over the years, hiring private investigators to no avail. Zoe was struck by the depth of Richard's remorse and sincerity, but could not yet forgive his abandonment or the pain he had unknowingly caused them both. Instead, she acknowledged that forgiveness, like healing, required time and honesty. Richard humbly respected her decision, promising to remain open should she ever wish to build a relationship. Zoe departed from their encounter not with bitterness but thoughtful contemplation, carefully considering how to rewrite her future. She understood that her mother's protective actions had come from a place of profound love, though they had inadvertently withheld the opportunity for Zoe to make her own choice about knowing her father. In the end, Zoe realized that Evelyn's words forgive, love, begin were meant as a guide, a suggestion for her to embrace the freedom of deciding her own path forward. The story speaks profoundly to American audiences, resonating with universal themes of lost opportunities, racial complexities, family secrets, and the transformative power of forgiveness and reconciliation. Zoe's courageous quest for truth highlights the emotional struggles that accompany discovering hidden family histories and facing uncomfortable truths about loved ones. Moreover, Richard's sincere regret underscores that even the wealthiest individuals must ultimately confront the consequences of their choices. This deeply human story reminds viewers that life's greatest treasures are not defined by financial success, but rather by love, integrity, and genuine relationships. Zoe's journey emphasizes the importance of personal agency, acknowledging past wounds without becoming permanently defined by them. Her thoughtful decision not to rush into forgiveness, but instead cautiously keep the door open, sends a powerful message that reconciliation and healing can still be possible despite deep emotional scars. Ultimately, Zoe's story offers encouragement to anyone struggling with difficult family dynamics, suggesting that while the past cannot be changed, individuals hold the power to choose how those experiences will shape their future. 7. Zoe Carter's quiet life as a diner waitress took an unexpected turn one night when Richard Lawson, a billionaire businessman, walked through the door and unknowingly revealed a photograph of her mother, Evelyn, tucked inside his wallet. Evelyn, a humble African-American woman who had spent her life raising Zoe alone without any known ties to wealth or influence, made the presence of her picture in this powerful white man's possession both unsettling and mysterious. Zoe's heart raced as she confronted Richard about why he carried her mother's photograph, but his curt dismissal left her stunned and confused. Determined not to let the truth slip away, Zoe spent a sleepless night searching for clues online until she identified him as the prominent CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises, a real estate empire spanning major cities across America. Discovering no apparent connection between her mother and Richard in public records only fueled her determination. Zoe bravely went to Lawson's downtown office tower, using quick thinking to bypass security and gain access to his floor, where she demanded an audience with him by invoking her mother's name. Richard reluctantly agreed to speak privately, and in that tense encounter, the truth began unraveling. He confessed that he had loved Evelyn deeply in his youth, but under intense family pressure and threats of losing his inheritance and societal standing, he abandoned her, rationalizing that he could one day return and repair their relationship after achieving financial stability. However, by the time Richard had achieved his wealth, Evelyn had vanished, leaving no trace, deliberately shielding herself and Zoe from ever being found. Zoe felt a deep surge of anger and betrayal, knowing her mother had endured years of hardship and loneliness, silently carrying this secret while Richard had lived a life of privilege. Richard's remorse was evident as he expressed regret over his youthful cowardice, haunted by his decision ever since. That night, as Zoe searched through her mother's cherished belongings, she discovered a delicate silver necklace engraved with the profound words, "Forgive, love, begin," accompanied by a small photograph of Richard and a heartfelt note from Evelyn. The discovery provided the final missing piece to the puzzle. Richard Lawson was not only her mother's lost love, but Zoe's biological father. Armed with this powerful revelation, Zoe returned to confront Richard once more, presenting the necklace as evidence of their shared past. Richard was visibly moved, admitting that he had no idea Evelyn had been pregnant or that he had a daughter. He revealed years of anguish and fruitless searches conducted by private investigators, proving Evelyn had meticulously hidden herself and Zoe to protect her daughter from heartbreak. Zoe recognized her mother's strength and sacrifice, understanding Evelyn had shielded her from potential rejection and pain. Yet, she also felt robbed of the chance to know her father, forced to grapple with emotions of loss, resentment, and unanswered questions. Zoe candidly admitted to Richard that forgiveness would not be immediate or easy, but she was willing to begin exploring the possibility. Richard accepted this with humble gratitude, promising patience and openness whenever Zoe was ready to pursue a relationship. Their conversation acknowledged that healing the deep wounds of abandonment and regret required genuine effort, honesty, and mutual understanding. Zoe left Richard's office not with bitterness, but with thoughtful consideration about what forgiveness truly meant. This emotionally charged experience resonated deeply with American values of family, reconciliation, and redemption, highlighting the complexities faced by individuals confronting painful truths about their origins. Zoe's story emphasized the importance of personal choice and agency, suggesting that while the past cannot be undone, it can serve as a powerful foundation for future healing. For American audiences, particularly older adults who have witnessed life's many complexities, this narrative reinforces that genuine connection and reconciliation can occur even after years of separation and silence. Ultimately, Zoe's journey teaches that forgiveness and understanding are journeys rather than destinations, affirming the belief that embracing one's personal history, no matter how painful, can lead to emotional freedom, healing, and meaningful new beginnings. 8. Zoe Carter's life changed forever when a billionaire named Richard Lawson walked into the diner where she worked the night shift. It was late, and Zoe was ready for another uneventful evening serving coffee to weary travelers. However, everything shifted dramatically when Richard, impeccably dressed and exuding confidence, accidentally dropped his wallet, causing a photograph to fall to the diner floor. When Zoe picked it up, her heart nearly stopped. The photo showed her mother, Evelyn Carter, a modest African-American woman who had lived a humble life, raising Zoe alone without ever mentioning any ties to wealth or influence. Struggling with disbelief, Zoe confronted Richard, demanding an explanation. But he brushed her off coldly, leaving Zoe with nothing but confusion, anger, and unanswered questions. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe spent the entire night searching the internet until she found his identity. Richard Lawson was the influential CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises, a vast real estate empire. Yet Zoe found no public connections between him and Evelyn. Driven by a relentless need to understand, she bravely went to Lawson's luxurious corporate headquarters the next day, managing to bypass security with quick thinking and determination. Upon confronting him again, Zoe finally got answers she wasn't prepared for. Richard admitted that he had not only known Evelyn, but deeply loved her decades before. However, faced with pressure from his affluent family, who threatened to disown him if he pursued a relationship with a woman of modest means, he made the fateful decision to abandon Evelyn, believing he could return after securing his fortune and status. Tragically, by the time Richard achieved his wealth, Evelyn had disappeared, intentionally erasing herself from his world to protect Zoe from the pain she herself had endured. Hearing this, Zoe was filled with conflicted emotions: anger, betrayal, and sorrow for her mother, who had endured hardship while Richard lived comfortably. She learned that Evelyn had intentionally concealed Richard's existence from her, trying to shield Zoe from feelings of rejection or abandonment. The discovery forced Zoe to reconsider her entire life, wondering what might have been had circumstances been different. Later that night, as Zoe sifted through her mother's keepsakes, she found a velvet pouch containing a delicate silver necklace engraved with 3 poignant words: "Forgive, love, begin." Accompanying it was a small photograph of Richard and a note written by Evelyn. The note explained that the necklace belonged to Zoe's father and expressed the hope that someday she would understand and perhaps find forgiveness. Suddenly, Zoe grasped the full truth: Richard Lawson wasn't merely a past lover. He was her father. Overwhelmed, Zoe returned once more to confront Richard, this time revealing the necklace and her newfound understanding of their relationship. Richard was visibly shaken, overcome by the realization that he had missed decades of his daughter's life. He admitted that Evelyn had never informed him of the pregnancy, and he had unsuccessfully searched for her for years, hiring investigators to no avail. Zoe saw the genuine regret and sadness in his eyes, recognizing a man burdened by past mistakes he could never fully rectify. Richard didn't ask Zoe for immediate forgiveness. Instead, he humbly offered her the opportunity to get to know him, not as a wealthy CEO, but as a flawed man who had made a devastating choice in his youth. Zoe appreciated his honesty, but struggled with whether forgiveness was possible. Still, she recognized her mother had left the necklace for a reason: to empower Zoe with the choice Evelyn herself had lacked. Zoe realized this decision was hers alone, an empowering yet daunting prospect. She wasn't ready to call Richard her father immediately, but she chose not to close the door completely. Instead, she decided to give herself the space to heal and contemplate, understanding that real forgiveness and reconciliation required time and careful thought. Zoe's story highlights powerful American themes: the profound value of family, the complexities of forgiveness, and the possibility of redemption despite past mistakes. It speaks directly to the experiences of many Americans, particularly seniors, who understand deeply that life rarely unfolds as planned, and that families are complicated by circumstances, choices, and sometimes regret. Zoe's willingness to face difficult truths underscores the resilience of the human spirit and offers hope that even deeply wounded relationships might find healing. Her story resonates because it affirms the possibility that, no matter how late, it is never truly too late to embrace forgiveness, confront the past, and courageously begin anew. 9. Zoe Carter was accustomed to late-night shifts at the quiet diner where she worked, passing evenings pouring coffee and waiting tables for weary customers. Her life was modest, shaped by the sacrifices her mother, Evelyn Carter, had made while raising Zoe alone. But everything Zoe knew about her past was challenged when a mysterious billionaire named Richard Lawson walked through the diner doors. Lawson exuded wealth and authority, his sharp suit likely worth more than Zoe's annual salary. Yet he displayed no interest in her as he placed an order for black coffee. As Zoe served him, Lawson's wallet accidentally slipped from his hand, sending a photograph fluttering to the diner floor. Zoe's heart froze as she saw her mother's face in that photo. Her mother, a humble, kind African-American woman with no known connection to someone as influential and wealthy as Richard Lawson. Shocked and trembling, Zoe demanded an explanation. Lawson coldly dismissed her, claiming she was mistaken and leaving abruptly, yet Zoe knew without a doubt what she had seen. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe spent a sleepless night researching Lawson, discovering he was a billionaire real estate mogul whose powerful empire stretched across major cities. Although she searched for any connection between Lawson and her mother, nothing appeared. This deepened her suspicion that Richard Lawson had deliberately erased Evelyn from his past, prompting Zoe to confront him directly at his lavish corporate headquarters. After managing to bypass security and reach Lawson's office, Zoe finally faced the billionaire once more, her heart racing with anxiety and anger. Cornered, Lawson admitted that he had indeed known Evelyn deeply and had loved her profoundly many years earlier. Yet, in a moment of cowardice, faced with pressure from his family who threatened to strip him of his inheritance and status if he continued their relationship, he chose wealth and security over love. His plan to secure his future and return later failed tragically when he discovered Evelyn had disappeared, making it impossible for him to find her despite extensive searches. Lawson's confession struck Zoe deeply, her emotions torn between fury over her mother's suffering and profound sadness for the lost years and opportunities. Returning home, Zoe sorted through her late mother's belongings, hoping for answers to lingering questions Evelyn never addressed. Among treasured keepsakes, Zoe found a velvet pouch containing a silver necklace with the inscription, "Forgive, Love, Begin," and a faded photograph of Richard Lawson. Accompanying it was a handwritten note from Evelyn, explaining that the necklace belonged to Zoe's father. With stunning clarity, Zoe understood Richard Lawson wasn't merely Evelyn's lost love. He was the father she'd never known existed. Overwhelmed, Zoe returned to Lawson's office once again, confronting him with the necklace and the revelation that she was his daughter. Lawson, visibly shaken and remorseful, revealed that Evelyn had never informed him of Zoe's existence, and he genuinely regretted the devastating decisions he made as a young man. He acknowledged Evelyn's efforts to protect Zoe from his betrayal, conceding that perhaps Evelyn had been justified in shielding Zoe from him. Richard expressed sincere regret and admitted he couldn't change his past actions, but hoped for a chance to be part of Zoe's future, not as a wealthy CEO, but simply as her father, a flawed man who made a terrible mistake. Zoe grappled with complicated feelings, unsure if forgiveness was even possible. Yet, she realized the necklace her mother left her symbolized the choice Evelyn herself never had the choice to forgive, to love, and to begin anew. Zoe wasn't ready to immediately forgive Lawson, but she decided not to shut him out entirely. Instead, she embraced the strength and independence her mother had instilled in her and resolved to take her time, carefully evaluating whether reconciliation was possible. Zoe's story resonates deeply with American values of family, second chances, and the possibility of redemption, particularly relevant to senior Americans who understand the complexity of life's choices and the profound impact they have on generations. It illustrates that healing is a personal journey, guided not by obligation, but by courage, compassion, and the possibility of reconciliation, proving it is never too late to confront difficult truths and redefine one's future. 10. Zoe Carter had always thought of her life as simple and predictable, quietly working nights at a small diner to make ends meet. But everything she knew changed dramatically one evening when a billionaire named Richard Lawson unexpectedly walked into her diner, setting off a series of events that would redefine her entire understanding of her family history. Initially, Zoe saw Richard as just another wealthy customer, polished, detached, and aloof someone from a world she could scarcely imagine. However, the night took an unexpected twist when Richard's wallet accidentally opened, allowing a photograph to slip out onto the diner floor. Zoe's heart froze as she recognized the face staring back at her from the picture. It was her mother, Evelyn Carter, a kind and gentle woman who had raised Zoe single-handedly and without any known ties to wealth or privilege. Confused and shaken, Zoe confronted Richard, demanding answers about how and why he possessed such a personal photograph. Richard brushed her questions aside coldly, claiming she must be mistaken, and quickly departed, leaving Zoe standing bewildered and alone. Determined to uncover the truth, Zoe embarked on a relentless quest to find out more about the mysterious man who had unexpectedly appeared in her life. Her sleepless night led her to discover that Richard Lawson was the influential CEO of Lawson Global Enterprises, a billionaire real estate mogul whose empire extended across major American cities. Yet, despite hours of exhaustive online searching, Zoe could find no documented connection between Richard Lawson and her mother. The absence of information was unsettling, suggesting to Zoe that Richard had deliberately erased any evidence of a relationship between himself and Evelyn, deepening her suspicion and frustration. Driven by an unshakable resolve, Zoe boldly approached Richard at his corporate headquarters, demanding an explanation for the photograph and his relationship with her mother. Once confronted face to face, Richard finally broke his silence, revealing a truth Zoe could scarcely have imagined. He had once loved Evelyn deeply. His voice heavy with regret, Richard admitted that he had abandoned Evelyn years ago under intense pressure from his affluent family, who had threatened to disinherit him and strip away his privileged status if he pursued a relationship with someone they deemed unworthy. Richard had naively believed he could temporarily sacrifice love to secure his inheritance and financial future, intending to return later and reclaim the life he had abandoned. Tragically, by the time he attempted to reunite with Evelyn, she had vanished without a trace, effectively closing any door Richard might have had to make amends. Zoe's initial reaction to Richard's revelation was a mixture of anger and confusion, especially given that her mother had never once mentioned his name or existence. Seeking clarity, Zoe returned home and carefully examined her mother's old possessions. Hidden among Evelyn's treasured keepsakes was a delicate silver necklace in a velvet pouch, engraved with the powerful words, "Forgive, love, begin." Alongside the necklace was a faded photograph of Richard and a heartfelt note written by Evelyn, explaining that the necklace had belonged to Zoe's father and that one day she would understand its significance. With this poignant discovery, Zoe realized that Richard Lawson wasn't just a man from Evelyn's distant past. He was, in fact, her own father. The revelation was overwhelming, yet Zoe felt compelled to confront Richard once more. When she presented him with the necklace, Richard was visibly shaken, genuinely unaware that Evelyn had been pregnant when he left. He expressed deep sorrow for his choices, acknowledging the pain and loss his abandonment had caused both Evelyn and Zoe. Richard also recognized the depth of Evelyn's courage, noting her decision to protect Zoe from a father whose decisions might have hurt her more deeply had he been allowed into their lives. He humbly asked Zoe for a chance to reconcile, not as the powerful billionaire he had become, but simply as a flawed man seeking forgiveness and connection. Zoe was initially uncertain, wrestling internally with whether to open her heart to a father who had never been there or to protect herself from possible further pain. Yet, as she held the pendant bearing Evelyn's final message, Zoe understood that her mother had intended to leave her not just a symbol, but the power and freedom to make her own choice. Recognizing this profound gift from Evelyn, Zoe decided that while immediate forgiveness was impossible, she would not close the door entirely on Richard. Instead, she resolved to explore the possibility of reconciliation at her own pace, honoring her mother's legacy and her own emotional boundaries. This powerful story speaks deeply to American audiences, particularly seniors, who understand life's complexities and the meaningful possibility of second chances. Zoe's experience highlights the strength found in forgiveness, the value of family connections, and the importance of making decisions that honor both the past and the future. Zoe Carter's powerful journey teaches us invaluable lessons about forgiveness, healing, and the courage to face our past, even late in life. No matter how old we are, we all carry within us memories of love and loss, choices made, and roads not taken. Sometimes, past regrets can seem impossible to mend, leaving us burdened by unresolved emotions. Yet Zoe's story reminds us that forgiveness is not about erasing the past, but choosing to release its hold on our hearts, allowing us to move forward in peace. For seniors, especially, this message resonates deeply. It is never too late to reconcile relationships, to seek or grant forgiveness, and to embrace the chance for new beginnings. Even when memories are painful, we have the power to reshape our understanding of them, finding wisdom and grace in life's most challenging chapters. Zoe's experience with her estranged father, Richard Lawson, encourages us to remain open to life's unexpected opportunities for healing and connection. It illustrates that emotional wounds, while deep, can soften over time through compassion and understanding. Thus, the most profound lesson we could draw from Zoe's story is the timeless power of forgiveness not as an act of weakness, but as a profound strength that brings emotional freedom. By facing our regrets with honesty and humility, we can find renewed purpose and hope, enriching our remaining years with meaning, peace, and joy. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope this family reunion story touched your heart. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Stories TH channel for more amazing stories like this. Your support means the world to us.